Right. So good afternoon and welcome to. It's now getting too loud, right? Yeah. So welcome. Had a good lunch. So yeah, it's gonna be in English. Is that okay? I hope, because I don't know any other language except if you want to French. French, anyone? No. So English better, right? Okay, right. So the lunch was good. You are sleeping because you ate too much, or was it too little that you are not satisfied and you want more, right? So just to get to know a little bit each other, how many of you are actually a developer? Everyone, right? So developer means like front-end developer? Front, full stack. Well, you are subset of front-end are subset of you, right? And the rest, I assume, are back-end or full stack? Okay, cool. And I mean, full stack, front-end, back-end, you probably know this problem, right? The problem of which framework to choose. So now we have like every second week, we have a new framework available, a new framework.js that you need to learn and you need to study. And even probably now we are seeing a little bit of stability in the market, but still the choices are too many. And we see always those side talks if Angular is dead, React is gonna master, should I go to Vue? Vue is the best, I like this, I like that. So yeah, we have a problem. Like it's a little bit old, but it's still a problem till today. Which JavaScript framework or which front-end framework we should use and start to use today in new projects, or which framework we can rely on and we can continue using without worrying that soon I need to migrate and soon I need to upgrade. And the story was not only 2016. The story is a little bit older than that. So that was on 2010 when the Wired magazine said that actually the web is dead. And they come up with this conclusion because of this interesting guy, because when he announced about this device and said like everything is apps, everything literally become an app. So you find the supermarket at the end of the street asking you, hey, can you make me an app for my supermarket? Can you make me an app for my restaurant? Everyone wants an app. So moving from enterprises and big companies believed that the next big thing should be an app. Moving to even very small businesses and startups that believe also to start and conquer the market is an app. And they are not wrong. I mean, we have seen people becoming very rich and making big things out of small apps that they started with, right? But statistically speaking, there is also more reasons. So while this comparison shows us that the visitors of web application on the mobile are way bigger than the visitors of native applications, but the time spent on a native application is way higher. So people, users, do like to use their native apps. Once they start to use a native app, they stay on it a little bit more time, and they feel the experience is better. So why visitors on the web is higher, but still when they start to land on a mobile app, it's the other way around? What's going on? I'll go back to the statistics. This clicker is interesting. So I'll go back to the statistics. Actually, those statistics tell us something very interesting from business point of view. From business point of view, it tells me that if you build a good website, the likelihood of your user to come and find you is way higher than building a native application. So it means that the conversion rate and the money that you need to acquire a user after building a very good mobile application is very low compared to building a good web application. But then, well, the money is well spent. If you make a good good mobile application and you manage to acquire a user, the user is likely to spend more time on you. But again, so what I'm trying to say here, is it like, should we go with web? Should we go with native application? What's going on here? The problem is the expectations. When we're starting to direct our users to our web applications, our users do not want to see that you have built this application with Kotlin. They don't care. If you tell them that I have used the latest technology, REST APIs, security trends, all this kind, I used the bot, I used whatever, they don't care. If you put a big banner and say that I have built this application with assembly code, they still don't care. What they care about is actually the reality, that what happens in their hand. And from web point of view, web unfortunately was never built to target mobiles. So web is very, very old, and from the old days, it was mainly for HTML, linked pages, links, you click on a link, it opens a new page, and so on. It was not even designed for offline. It was designed for just network, right? So apparently the problem is actually in the old design of the web. And this is basically what I want to talk about today. What is happening in the modern era, modern browsers and modern web? Is web actually dead? Should we just migrate away from web and give it away? Or is there something else that we should do? But before I continue, I would like to share a little story that happened with me. It was some time ago when I visited this planet called America. And I landed in Austin Airport. Austin Airport is quite interesting, has very nice places, and it has also internet. And I wanted to go to my hotel, so I searched online. You know, I am a tech guy, right? So I started to search online how to go to my hotel using public transport. And I found this interesting application, Cap Metro, which is applications that tells you if you download the application, then you can buy tickets from inside the application, and then just tap in the bus and get into the bus, and you don't even have to deal with cash, which is pretty cool, right? Time was 5:23, and buses run every 30 minutes, which means that I have 7 minutes left for the next bus to arrive. I mean, if you think about 7 minutes, there are plenty of things that you can do in 7 minutes. Think about it. It's a lot of time. So you definitely can buy a bus ticket in 7 minutes. That shouldn't be an issue. So my journey started by downloading the application. And here, it shows you that the application is 80 megabyte. So is 80 megabyte a good number? Big, small? Small, right? So it shouldn't be a problem to download 80 megabyte. Despite the fact that my web connectivity in the airport was very slow, but still, 80 megabyte. We are not talking about a big number, right? And then after I downloaded the application and I installed and I agreed of everything, it asked me for sign up. Again, this page, I'm not complaining about it. Even though there is a small sign up with email link down, but if you have my similar experience, you wouldn't go for that link because you don't want to fill your first name, last name, email address, confirm email address, password, confirm password. I don't want to go over all of that. So luckily, they provided me with sign up with Facebook and sign up with Google, which is amazing for me. But I'm not a Facebook user. I wouldn't sign up with my Gmail, right? So I decided to sign up with Facebook, and I'm not a Facebook user. I don't have my Facebook app installed. So I have to go over the traditional screen, which asks me to enter my email and Facebook password. And again, if you are like me, I don't know what is my Facebook password. So I needed to flip around and figure out the saved passwords inside my browser to figure out what to enter here. And that was not everything. I also needed to go over two-step verification because, Facebook. And when everything was perfect, then it asked me to add my credit card, which is literally holding my credit card in one hand and holding the phone in the other hand and copying 16-digit one by one, expiration date, address, shipping address, and so on. Sorry? Could be. Yeah, but I'm talking about, by the way, this is a real story. This is exactly what happened with me. And I got inspired by this. So you know what I'm heading at, right? 7 minutes later, I looked at my clock, and it was 6:01. You know what is that? It means literally I missed 2 buses. And that's not everything. It means that I also have to stay 29 more minutes for the third bus to arrive, which is in total 1 hour and 7 minutes lost because I wanted to use technology. I'm not complaining about the bus system in Austin. If you are living in Austin, if you are a person who lives in Austin probably will go over this hustle once in your lifetime, and then everything will be fine. Every time you go to the bus, you tap the bus, you get the ticket, everything will be clear, right? But in my case, the application was wrong for me. I was a wrong user. To continue the story, actually, this happened. When I went to the hotels, they told me, hey, if you download our app, you'll be able to open the door with tapping, and you will get notifications and discounts and checkout receipt and everything. So how about you do that? And I told them, you know, I'm not a technology guy. Don't you have these plastic cards that just open the door because I'm too tired and I just want the bed? So if you think about it, how many applications we try to build them as native applications when they are not needed to be native, the user doesn't care if it's native, and most likely you are losing customers because they are native. Now, at the beginning, I said 18 megabyte is a small number, right? I lied. It's not. Imagine if I tell you, go to mywebsite.com, and then when you open the website, it tells you, hey, wait 18 megabyte to be downloaded first, and then I'll show you the content of my website. That won't work, right? You will not wait. So my slides today, my talk today is all about this. How to progressively acquire your user through web applications, and then later on you can decide. So if I want to give you an example here, for example, I am a tourist here in Minsk, and I want to eat burger. What should I do? Should I go to Play Store and search burger in Minsk? Or I'm going to open a search engine, most likely, and search burger in Minsk. And then I'll find a link. If this link acquires me quickly, like I click on the link, it tells me which burger you want, I select cheeseburger, and then it tells me checkout, and then later on it tells me, hey, enter your credit card information. Is it going to acquire me faster? Or if it tells me, okay, first download our app. Second, after you download the app, please enter your detailed information and sign in and sign up and credit card and everything, when I lost appetite already and I don't want to eat anything anymore, right? So a lot of things we see happening in our daily life like that. I'm not saying that native applications need to disappear, but I'm just trying to highlight that in many cases, you actually might not need native application. And this is not only me saying that, but a lot of enterprises and companies are seeing that as well. We see Facebook and Twitter, for example, they are now moving more and more toward web. So my web experience on Facebook, on the browser, has improved a lot over the last 1 year, for example. Now, let me ask you this question. How many apps have you installed through the last month? If it's 5 or more, none. If it's 3, between 3 and 5, 2, 3 people. Okay, how many didn't install any app last month? Yeah, 50% of you, right? So actually, statistically speaking as well, the number of apps on average installed per month is 0. If you think about it, you get a new mobile phone, you spend the first 2 days installing all apps of the market and saturate your mobile phone and try to install everything. And then slowly, moving forward, the likelihood of you to actually install an app goes down. Now I come and tell you, hey, there is a nice app, install it. You tell me, let me think about it. Does it have access to my camera? What does it do on my phone? Do I have space on my phone? Do I really need this app to keep running on the background on my phone? All those questions start to come up in your head, and then the likelihood for you to accept the fact of installing an app takes a little bit harder time. Again, I'm not saying that native applications are bad. Native applications are not going anywhere. I'm just saying that if you want to accelerate your business and you want to acquire more users, you need to rethink about it. You need to follow what experts are saying about how enterprises, after the hype of having an app, it's going down again, and people are more and more interested into not having an app and actually building a good mobile experience. Because your user will find you first through mobile web. So here comes the definition of progressive web app. So how many of you heard about progressive web app? 1 only? 2? Oh, okay, that's interesting. So progressive web app is, well, sorry?
I've done one.
You've done one as well. Okay, so maybe you should join me and give the definition. So,
By the way, we've done the progressive web app exactly for our conference, which is not a separate app. It's exactly progressive web app, so people don't have to download it for the conference.
What was the conference name?
J Prime.
J Prime.
Yeah.
All right.
We have no success with downloading apps. So people just do not download apps. That's why we made a progressive web app. And that was it.
Excellent. So probably you also packaged it and placed it in the Play Store as well. You packaged it as an application and placed it in Play Store as well?
At the end of the day, yes.
Okay.
But the idea is that mainly it's a web app. So that's it.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know about Voxed if they have an app or not, but let's not go into politics. So let's just focus on the definition here. Progressive web apps. It's yet another acronym created originally by Google. So Google first came up with this name, and then later on, a lot of companies joined the force into redefining what is the web. The web doesn't need to stay the old web that is hyperlink transfer protocol anymore. We can probably renew the web experience and make it progressively understanding and progressively upgrading for the web, for the user experience. So let's go back and check what are the problems that we want to tackle. The problem is friction. We know that a lot of people, when they say, you're going to build a web application and package it and give it to me in the Play Store, that's not going to be good experience. That's going to be not working good. It's not going to be native, right? Let's see. So I told you that, for example, when you get a new mobile application, you feel like you want to install a lot of apps and you feel like you want to saturate your mobile phone, right? What would be like to actually download the whole applications and have it available inside your phone? Or maybe just Google it. Can we actually, okay. Can we actually bake our own cake and eat it as well? And think about the number of devices that we need to target nowadays. You as a developer, you no longer need to only target a desktop only or a mobile only. There are more and more connected devices that we need to look at. So it turned out that the web was not slacking off after all. And even the Wired magazine announced this, that turned out that the web is not dead. Google revived it. Not Google only, but a lot of companies, they sat together. And here I'm talking about Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, Mozilla, a lot of companies. They sat together and created the so-called Extensible Web Manifesto. This manifesto consists mainly of tackling four main issues: the lack of component model, the lack of application model, the performance of web applications on mobile, and the hardware access. So what I'm going to do next is basically tell you what the suggestions that they propose to solve those four problems and how they are actually solved nowadays in modern browsers. So lack of component model. You know this, right? We have seen jQuery, Dojo, and so on. There have been a lot of attempts to create a standard way of how a component should be created for the web, right? You know what is the problem here? That each one of them was working independently. Yahoo, for example, was trying to create a component model and try to tell all the developers to follow Yahoo model. But the problem with Yahoo is that they are not standard. So some people come and say, why should I follow Yahoo? Why not jQuery? And then people from jQuery tell, why should I follow jQuery? Why not Dojo, for example, and so on. So this is even a problem that we see nowadays. You go and create an Angular component, and you spend many years working with an Angular component, and then a new version of Angular, or maybe React, comes, and then you want to move to React, and you cannot take your work. Your work is void, right? It's useless now. You have to recreate everything from the beginning for React and for Vue and so on. We have also probably seen this when you try to debug your application and you see this lovely tree. Solution, web component. So web component literally is writing one line of HTML like this one and then getting these results. So the result here is just one line, Vaadin component. It's a component, fully fledged component with a lot of features and a lot of capabilities that you see inside your browser. It's kind of the object-oriented of the web. We create a library that is full of a lot of things and capabilities and tools and JavaScript and everything, and then we give it to you, and all you have to do is just write one line of code inside your HTML, and it's done. So because I don't have much time, I will not go over all the technical details. I will go very, very quickly over the code, just to give you an idea how it's done and show you that it's standard. It's not like we have invented something. Basically, you define a class, a JavaScript class that extends, of course, HTML element, and then you define how the component should look like. So this is the name of the component that I can use inside my browser, and the only rule that you have to follow is that it has to contain a hyphen. And then you can start to place it inside your code. So here's the simple examples that I've created. Class, my component, extend HTML element, and then here is a component. So if you inspect this line, you will see that this is a component. So this is the most simplest way how a component can be made and encapsulated and exported and given to any other one. So now you can use it in Angular, you can use it in React, you can use it in Vue. Your work will not be void anymore. And it's very important to mention here. Here I'm talking about standard, which means that if a browser does not support this, we cannot call it a browser anymore, right? Because everyone, all the companies and all the players in the market, they sat together and they agreed that this is going to be a standard, which means that all modern browsers and all frameworks need to support that. No choice. So that's for components. Now for application model. Again, we have seen also many attempts on how to define how an application is composed. So I'm pretty sure you know PhoneGap, right? So anyone played with PhoneGap before? No? You don't know? So PhoneGap was a big attempt to, it is still working, attempt to try to package any web applications that you have inside native applications and give it in the market. And there are many other things like Adobe Air, like Chrome Store, Electron apps, Windows.js, and so on. You see the pattern here? What is the problem? Again, everyone is trying to work on their own proprietary solution. If they work together, then probably we'll find a solution. But here we're talking about what? We're talking about lack of application model. So who is here an Android developer or tried to be an Android developer before? No? 2, 3? Okay, so probably you know this. When I tell you, for example, create a new Android application for me, you will know for sure that there is one only way to do that. You go, IntelliJ, start new project, and then you get a fixed structure where the XML files are, where the Java code is, where the resources are. It's fixed. You cannot change that. If you really, really want to create your own tool, you will have to still follow this same structure. That's one powerful thing in Android. It's a fixed structure on how an application model for Android is defined. And same for iOS devices, and same for Ubuntu applications, and same for many other platforms. But then for the web, we had this issue. And here the beginning of progressive web apps. So I probably give you a small definition before, but to give you a little bit more definition, I like to say that progressive web app is a checklist of items that you don't have to worry about it. If you are a web developer already, and you already have a web application, you do not need to worry because it's just probably a few checklist of items that are missing that you need to follow. It's not a new programming language. It's not a new framework. It's not a new tool. It's just small fixes you do inside your application, and voila, it's progressive web app. So probably in your experience, you had a website, right? And this website was more or less implementing some of progressive web apps checklist items, and then you went and said like, okay, this is missing and that is missing, and now we have a progressive web app. Now, this is from your side as a developer. What you get in return is the browser will reward you and will give you even more capabilities that help you tackle all those problems that we talked about, the friction, the speed, the interactivity, working offline, and so on. While I invite you to check more about Progressive Web App, I will make 2 highlights on what is the core of Progressive Web App to actually get an application progressive. The first is called the Web Manifest. It's a very simple JSON file that defines your application. You need to tell your browser what is a Progressive Web App. So here I'm saying, for example, that it's a to-do app. The icon is called todo.png. The starting page is index.html. And it's standalone application. Voila. Just a definition so that the browser understands more about your application. Do I study this by heart? Do I know this JSON by heart? No. You just Google it, and you'll find plenty of templates. Just copy one of them, modify the values, and you're done. There is also very interesting websites now that generates your manifest for you. Now, when you have generated the manifest file, you just include it inside your main or your start or your index page of your application. You're including it in the root, and that's it. So that was simple. The second is the service worker. I like to call the service worker as the installer of the web. Remember in the old days when you get a setup.exe, you download the setup.exe, and then it starts to download the libraries and install everything inside your device? The good news here is you do not need permission to download a JavaScript file, right? So a service worker, that's the installer. It's a JavaScript file that must be downloaded first before your application. And then this JavaScript file should contain the code and the logic about start to installing your application inside the browser. So this can be like downloading resources, downloading CSS files, downloading images, making some preparation, asking for permission to access hardware, and so on. Service Worker exists in all modern browsers. So again, we're talking here about the standard, and if a browser does not support Service Worker, then this browser is in trouble. So how to check if the Service Worker is available? You just check if Service Worker is in our navigator, and then we can do something like, for example, register our Service Worker. So now I have a file called sw.js, and this file will contain all the code related to my Service Worker. So what can I do inside a Service Worker? This is the file. I can do things like, for example, manipulating cache. And this gives you an idea about, for example, how to work offline. So this Service Worker, this JavaScript file, will be available inside my browser. And now next time when I'm offline and try to access this same website again, what will happen? Remember from the picture? The Service Worker will be executed first. And the Service Worker will check, do I have connectivity or not? If I have connectivity, sweet. Let's bring resources from the server. If I do not have connectivity, then let's bring resources from the cache. And then the application will still work. The offline experience will still exist, and I can still manipulate the application even if I don't have network connectivity. Another example, you can maybe do something like push notifications. So this is an example that I send a push and with specifications like icon and badge and title, and then I say push this specific message. And you get something like this. So this notification will appear natively on your device, whether it's a desktop, mobile, even smartwatch, it will appear natively without having any native application installed. Why? Because it's standard again. Of course, I probably should mention here that this is probably happen after asking permission first from the user. We do not want developers to start spam users, and because you accidentally visited the website once, then this website start to send you notification again and again, right? This is the part where user experience jump in, because also you do not want your user visiting your website for the first time ever and then saying, hey, can you give me permission to send you a notification? And the normal response is usually like, heck, no, right? So a user experience, a good user experience here is to first of all make sure that your user, you acquire the user. This user is a frequent visitor of your website. And then probably it can be a section, a subsection of your website where you say, for example, if you want to stay updated with our news and updates, maybe you can enable notifications. And then when the users say yes, then you say, now you will see a pop-up asking you to ask me for permission. Please accept it. So now the user will be prepared to know what they are expecting. This is an example on how an application called Expense Manager. You can Google it, by the way. This is a demo, open source demo called Expense Manager PWA that more or less tries to demonstrate most of the capabilities of PWA. So as you can see, this application, I am opening it from demo.vaadin.com/expense manager. So it's just a web application. Can you see something special about this? There is something very special. Besides, it's a normal web application, but it has something very, very special. Can you notice? The button? Well, the button is also a web application button. So if you look up here, you'll find that this is black. This is not the normal color of the browser, right? It has changed to black, and also the notification area has changed to black. And this is something that I have requested it, because I defined that the theme of my application to be black, then the browser helped me. And they changed the operating system look and feel to be black to match my theme and make it look consistent. But that's not everything. Now, when you start to use this yeah, question?
The question is, isn't the browser itself, let me do it. Isn't the browser itself defining? He sees what the colors are, and he chooses the prevailing color. So if it's more black, then he'll choose black. It's more blue, then he chooses blue.
I'm not aware if a browser can do that, but what I know here is if I remove the manifest file, the theme line from the manifest file, then this is going to be white, and this is going to be blue.
So the manifesto actually forces it to do this?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was basically changed just because of manifest file. In the definition, I said the theme is black, so I got this. Now, when you visit this website enough number of times and start to interact with it, a pop-up will show from the browser and tell me, do you want to install this application? It seems that you are interested. You come here a lot. Do you want to install it? Again, this pop-up, I did not write any single line of code for it. It's a gift from the browser. The browser, here Chrome, detected that I'm interested in this application, so it suggested that maybe you want to install it inside your apps. And when it's installed, it becomes part of my applications. You can go and manage it, see how much space it's using. You can even uninstall it later on if you don't want. But the interesting part here is if I click on this button, what will happen is this. No browser anymore. Now it's a real part of my application system. It's working 100% as part of my application. It's a separate process. It's not part of the browser anymore. Someone will come and tell me, so you're talking about native application, not native application, hybrid application. Here I want to remind you that the user don't care. If you say that this has been built with HTML or React or whatever, the user don't care, as far as this is fast enough and it is actually working. So you actually have tackled a lot of problems through this PWA concept. If we go back to this experience that I had in the airport, do you remember this? So one of the problems that I faced is the sign-up process. If I was on browser, then the sign-up process will automatically fill in the data for me. The credit card, probably you have your credit card saved in your browser. And if not, and if the developer is clever enough, then there is something called payment request APIs that the developer can use to request payment in a nicer way with tabs. So it will communicate with installed apps like GPay, for example, Google Pay, and then it will start to pick your credit card and process your credit card automatically without actually entering any credit card and without taking a picture of the credit card. So isn't this like a promising future of how web applications can be built? Now, performance. We're talking about a very modern browsers and very modern applications nowadays. So we're talking here about mobile phones that really do not show much difference on benchmarks if you compare, for example, native versus web application. I mean, here we're talking about a WebKit engine or JavaScript engine versus virtual machine engine, right? But in some cases, it does matter. And here comes the so-called WebAssembly. Anyone heard about WebAssembly? Yes, someone is excited? Yeah, so WebAssembly is even one more step forward to help you get even more performance on your web application if you want. So just let's go back. How actually code gets compiled on the V8 engine for Chrome browser, for example, and now Microsoft browsers, right? So Edge is now using V8 as well, right? So what happens is you have the JavaScript source code, and this JavaScript source code gets interpreted, and then they try to compile, they try to execute it again and again. And because the V8 is a little bit smart, then they see if this specific part of code is repeated enough number of times, then maybe we can optimize it and convert it into a native code that can be executed natively, just like assembly, without needing to be interpreted again and again. That's how V8 tries to optimize your code. But can we jump ahead and forget all of that and go to interpreted code right away? Can we write a code that goes directly into the phase of being executed direct to the processor and direct on the machine? Well, I say yes, but you might not really need to do that except if you are doing something like this. So building a game, virtual reality, 3D engine, these kind of tools might really need to go that extra deep layer. Otherwise, I haven't seen really a good example of, for example, form filling, that you want this form to be faster for some reason, right? If you are making a form filling, if you are making like reading news or something like that, probably reaching this assembly level is not that needed. If you want to see something like this, you can check the AutoCAD website. They have now all the 3D manipulation tools built into the browser. You can do everything on the browser without installing 3D AutoCAD. If you are like me from the old days in the engineering school where we had to download 3 weeks of data on the device and empty everything on the device to be able to install it, and then after that the computers start to be slow and just rotating a small 3D model takes a lot of time. Anyone remembers those days? Yes, you do not need to do that anymore. You can do everything inside the browser. Yeah, I'll get back to this. So I mentioned quickly that payment request is also one of the things that tries to accelerate the web experience. There is also the credential management. So the Facebook login and Google login and all these kind of logins, they now can be only one tap away. So the developer can actually request a login from the login screen. Contacts API is coming on the way. We have WebGL, WebVR, and much more APIs and hardware access. I would say most of the hardware can now be accessed from your web application. So the recipe is, I've talked about web components. I've talked about progressive web apps, WebAssembly. It seems that the addition give us more or less web-native applications. You can actually reach a very high level of satisfactory application inside your device without really needing to go the extra mile and developing an application. I've probably talked about a lot of different things, and now you might ask me, okay, so where should I start? What should I learn right now? Is it WebAssembly? Is it like what? I would quote Paul Lewis from Google, who said that what you need to learn is actually the platform. If you understand those concepts, then it doesn't matter. Go ahead and learn React. It doesn't matter. As far as with React, you are going to build a progressive web app, and you are going to use web components. Go ahead and learn Vue. Doesn't matter, as long as you're going to build web components and use progressive web app. Now, let's assume that React died for any reason on earth. No problem, because your standard web components will work with Angular. Your progressive web app style can be easily migrated to Angular and so on. But that doesn't mean that we don't have tools. So there is a lot of tools that also help you to even accelerate and move forward. Just to mention Polymer as Stencil, for example. So Polymer is a library by Google that allows you to easily build web components without having to go over a lot of hassle. Stencil is by Ionic. And now we have also starter tools that help you to start a progressive web app without worrying about the infrastructure and writing all these manifest file and Serviceworker and all these kind of things. And talking about Serviceworker, there is also the Workbox. It's an open source project by Google that help you to tackle all those web caching problems. So you don't really need to write the codes that I showed you. You don't really need to write all this code and how to go over the scenario of caching and go over the scenario of network problem and go over the scenario of sending push and all these kind of APIs. You just use Workbox, and it will connect you with the APIs with one line of code. Now, what about WebAssembly? Luckily, there is also a tool that allows you to easily manipulate WebAssembly. The good news is, if you are just a web developer or a back-end developer, you most likely do not need to write assembly code at this point. All you need to know is just to connect to a WebAssembly library. So let's assume that I am a WebGL developer. All I need to do is to convert my C++ library to a WebAssembly so that developers like you can use it. Now, from your point of view, you want to probably display a 3D model inside your application. What do you need to do? You need to learn how to connect from your JavaScript code to my WebAssembly code. In terms of browser support, maybe I should remove this now because this is old news. So now that Edge is using the WebKit, then it's more or less similar to Chrome. And Safari has done a lot of work recently in supporting of progressive web app. So you really do not need to worry. In terms of companies, I mentioned briefly about Twitter, but also, for example, oh, that's interesting. That should be red. Yeah, at least this is red. That's correct. But yeah, so YouTube, for example, has rewritten all YouTube to be based on web components. And we have seen more and more companies that are adopting this new technology. So it seems that the browser still has a lot to offer. It seems that maybe the browser is more and more becoming our operating system. It seems that more and more, you probably do not need to worry about cross-platform tools and all this kind of hassle. You just need to build something that is progressive web app, and magic will happen, and it will work on your different IoT devices. If you cannot see, this is a mobile phone. This is a watch, smartwatch. Yeah, actually, there is another mobile phone here. Can you see it? I will send you those slides at the end, so probably you can check it better. So everything now is more or less a Lego blocks that we built on top of each other to create a big project. You create a standard web components. Those standard web components can be used anywhere, with jQuery, with Vue, with React, with Angular, with any framework. So nothing is lost, right? You build a manifest file, you build a service worker, everything's are blocks, you put them together, and the framework layer, to answer the first questions that I started today, the framework layer is becoming more and more a thinner layer that we probably do not need to worry about it that much anymore. So I probably didn't show you flying cars yet, but the browser has offered us what is like drones, which are very pretty nice tools. Moving forward, we are seeing more and more interesting features that are coming to the browsers, and if you are a good developer supporting those modern tools, the browser will reward you and also support you back with ready-made screens and support. So that's all about my presentation for today. A little bit more about this reindeer. So I work for Vaadin, which is a Finnish company. Anyone heard about Vaadin before? Oh, interesting. We need to have a talk. So Vaadin is actually a Finnish company, and the word Vaadin means this reindeer. That's why this is our mascot and slogan. We're an open source company interested in everything front end. We have a lot of tools and web components and progressive web apps and a lot of things for supporting the web component, the front end. If you want to check out some starters, how to integrate web components with Angular and Vue and so on, probably you want to check this link, vaadin.com/start. But if you want to learn more about PWA, then that's vaadin.com/PWA. A lot of nice resources that summarizes more or less what I talked about it today. Also, my colleague, who I thank him for helping me with much of those resources I brought today, he also wrote a very interesting blog post about the topics that I discussed today. So, questions? Do I have time, actually? How much time left?
Hi.
Okay, 5 minutes.
My name is Artyom, and I've been using Vaadin for last 4 years.
You are using what?
Vaadin for last 4 years.
Okay.
And It's 8th version. And my question is, you present us 10 on or later versions of Vaadin, right?
Yes.
And they still can we still make a connector that connect us with Java classes, with Java components in 10th version? Or
Okay.
no?
So if I understand, if I heard correctly, your question is you're using Vaadin 8,
Yeah.
and you're wondering if Vaadin 10 will help you to make connection between web components.
No. I want to know, can we still use a Java site to and connect it with JavaScript components?
Yes.
Yes,
So
we still connect. Or
with
we still
Vaadin 10,
use- Yeah.
if with Vaadin 10 you still can use Java
Yeah.
to connect with JavaScript.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent
Can we?
question. Yeah, excellent question. So a little bit of a background. So we used to have Vaadin 6, 7, 8. Those are frameworks that are only Java. And back then, in those days, we used to have our own also components. So those components, the problem with them, well, they are nice and good and everything if you use them, but then they are not portable.
Yeah,
So-
but we decided not to use standard Vaadin components because they're worse.
They are worse.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you need to check out the new ones.
We need to make our own web components and connect with Java and make a lot of extensions. And now there's proposed to migrate to 10th version or later. And can we migrate it without any issues or no?
Okay. Just to go a little bit back, so we used to have our own private components, and the problem with those components is that you cannot use them with any other framework. And also, if someone built a component with Angular, for example, you can use it inside the framework. And that was the main reason why we created the so-called Vaadin 10. So with Vaadin 10, you can start to actually use any web component without restriction, whether they are our components or they are components built with anyone else. So that was the main reason. And we know that we made a big mistake with Vaadin 10, which is basically we released it a little bit earlier than time. It was, we call it internally, feature incomplete. So if you are using Vaadin 8, for example, probably you had a lot of nice features, but then suddenly Vaadin 10 has a lot of features that are missing. And that is a promise that we are giving with Vaadin 14. So if you are following the news, Vaadin 14... Sorry?
I know, every 6 months you make a new version of Vaadin, right?
Yeah, but Vaadin 14 is a new LTS version. It's a new long-term support version that we promise with Vaadin 14 it's going to be coming with what we call feature parity. So all the features that were missing in 10 and they were previously available in 8, for example, they are going to be available in 14. So don't migrate to 10. I mean, if you want to, yes, but 14 is coming exactly in 2 weeks from now. Beta 2 was released last week already. And 14 has been released, is going to be released in 2 weeks from now. So the story in brief, we are moving away from Bower to support NPM. We're moving away from our internal navigation system to use a JavaScript engine for navigation and for routing. We're adding support for PWA. We are adding support. I don't want to market all the framework now, but what I want to say is we're fixing a lot of things that people faced with Vaadin 10. The idea is probably more or less what I showed in the presentation, which is trying to tackle all those non-standard problems and make the framework layer very thin, so that if you build a web component, or if you want to use our web component, or if you want to use a web component created by JPrime guys, you can use it without a problem. I'll just share a very small thing with you, if you may. Oh. So I'm actually going to present in Minsk next week.
Yeah, I know.
You know about this. So any person interested in Vaadin, where is the link? I'm pretty sure you cannot see that, right? let's put it in bit.ly link or something. Quickly on. I don't have network connection as well. All right, so I mean, if you are interested, please come and talk to me. I'll give you the link how to sign up for this. Basically, we're going to discuss more topics related to Vaadin. In this presentation, I was not really talking about Vaadin, but talking about the web. So this is probably a very interesting place where we can also check your code if you want and discuss something related to this. Yeah, maybe I give you, so it's on Wednesday at 6:30, and the place is Fabric. Can someone pronounce that? Yeah, Street 4, street number 4. So this could be a very interesting opportunity to talk more about Vaadin. Yeah, and of course I'm going to be here all the day, so please come and talk to me. Now, when I'm running out of time, maybe I can take one last question, or I have to leave. Okay, I think I have to leave now. So again, where is my slides? Oh, they cut me. Okay, I wanted to show my Twitter. No, I can't. Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay, anyway, thank you again for attending today, and enjoy the rest of the day.